And welcome to Two Guys on Politics. It's Saturday, February 21, 2026, and this is Season 5, Episode 6, broadcasting on the U.S. Arab Radio Network on WNZK AM 690 radio, as well as on YouTube at TwoGuysOnPolitics.com. I'm Ray Hanania with my co-host, former Congressman Bill Lipinski. We're going to be talking on Two Guys on Politics today about the Supreme Court rejecting Trump's tariffs. What impact does that have? Trump took $10 billion in U.S. funds and put it into the Board of Peace that he heads up as the chairman for life there. Prince Andrew is facing more charges regarding the Epstein scandal, but he's like the only person that really is dominating this. What happened to all the people here in the U.S. that should be investigated? Jan Schakowsky, the retiring congresswoman from the 9th District, withdrew her endorsement of Donna Miller in the 2nd Congressional District over AIPAC money that was donated to Donna Miller. And we're going to do a little update on Ukraine, which seems to have been pushed more and more out of the spotlight because of all these other controversies. And that's a shame. And then we might talk a little bit about Governor Pritzker and the Democrats, how they use Trump as a distraction from their own problems. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about all those topics. I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics. And the next voice you hear will be that of the Velvet Fog himself, Ray Hanania.
Hey, welcome, Bill. I hope you're doing well. I've been under the weather for the last 2 weeks. This is a new kind of sinus respiratory issue. It's like every year we get a new kind of virus that we have to deal with, and it's like impossible to figure out what's going on or treat. But it delayed me a little bit this past week, but I'm doing good. And we also want to wish a happy Ramadan Mubarak to all the Muslims that are out there who start celebrating Ramadan. And Bill, what do we say for Lent? Do we say anything for Lent for Christians?
No, we just do penance for Lent. We do at the end of Lent say Happy Easter. But I do want to talk about the Muslims
Sure.
and Ramadan, and I hope that they have a very prayerful, peaceful celebration of their Ramadan. This is a nation that welcomes all religions, and the more Muslims that we have coming into this country, I think the easier it will be for them to assimilate into the population.
Yep, and it's a big deal, and we never stereotype. Obviously, there are bad people on all sides, and majority good people on all sides too. So, our first topic: the U.S. Supreme Court rejected Trump's tariffs. Was that a surprise to you? It was kind of a surprise to me.
Fortunately, it was not a surprise to me, and I am extremely happy about it. To see that the Supreme Court ruled against Emperor Trump 6-3.
With 3 conservatives joining, right?
Yes, very definitely. 2 of them, I believe, he appointed. But, they were influenced, according to Trump, by foreign people now and foreign money. And there are a couple of idiots. I mean, he's unbelievable in what he says. Listen, everybody in this country knows that you cannot impose tariffs unless it is approved by the United States Congress first. But he went right ahead because he thinks he can do anything he wants because he's president of the United States, and he imposed these tariffs. And he not only imposed them, with any kind of diplomatic niceties, he used a sledgehammer instead of a scalper to impose these. He's made a lot of enemies for us around the world. It has not helped our business people whatsoever, unfortunately, because of the way that he has done it. So I am very happy that the Supreme Court has struck down his ability to do this. Now, he says he's got something new that he is going to impose, but that does say it has to be approved within 100 days by Congress. So I guess he could impose it, and it could exist for 99 days, and then Congress come in and refuse to support it, which would confuse the situation even more. I just believe that Donald Trump believes in nothing but chaos, chaos, chaos. And somehow he thinks that's good for him. And as long as it's good for him, it's good for America.
Well, Donald Trump doesn't believe anybody has any intelligence other than him. He doesn't seek advice from anybody. He doesn't sit down with members of Congress on both sides to figure out what's the best thing to do for the U.S. He just does whatever he wants to do. And he has a pattern that's kind of interesting. And that is you do one shocking thing today, and then 5 days later, you do another shocking thing. And if you do enough of those, you got like 20 different shocking things, people can't concentrate on everything. We focus on one shock at a time, and we try to deal with it. So he gets away with, all these other things that are unchallenged, that are just unbelievable, that he can get away with. He does have the right as president to impose. I was just looking up some of this 10% tariff for a temporary period. I think it's like 3 months, 90 days or 120 days, possibly 4 months. But you're right. If it's going to be extended, it has to be approved by Congress.
Right.
And even though he has a majority, at least the semblance of a majority in Congress, there have been some people that have opposed him in the Republican Party. And he's pushed them out, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. He doesn't even include them. He just does this, and they act like, oh yeah, we knew. But when you really look at the headlines and the stories, they didn't know. They were just told what he was doing without any consultation. So it's just a bad form of government, isn't it?
Well, there were 4 or 5 rulings by the Supreme Court that went in favor of his positions. And he said the court was the greatest court in the history
Right.
of the United States of America. And he praised it and praised it. And now, because of this decision, he contends they're taking foreign money. They're a bunch of fools, a bunch of idiots. It is disgusting.
There is no consistency, is there?
I tried for so long to accept his behavior because some of the goals that he was interested in, I was interested in also. But the worst thing about him, as far as I'm concerned, is he is hurting many of the causes that I believe that you and I support. And I don't know how we're ever going to implement those once he's out of office, because he has done so much damage to those causes because of his irrational behavior.
Yeah. Now, tariffs that he imposed between 2025 and 2026 have primarily acted as a tax increase on U.S. consumers and businesses, according to a report I was looking at, right, raising prices on imported goods and generating over 194 billion in additional federal revenue. Now, on the one hand, obviously, tariffs do bring money into this country. On the other hand, the cost for those products, that money that is coming in, that doesn't go to us, the taxpayers. We end up paying for it. So the American consumers have ended up paying almost 10 to 20% more, sometimes as much as 40% for foreign products. And some of these foreign products we can't avoid. Like I was watching the news this week, and most of our shoes that are made in this country come from, I think, Taiwan, and Asia. So we're paying a much higher price for that. And I do know one rule in American economy: when the price goes up, it never comes down. I have never seen anything permanently come down. other than when Trump tried to respond to claims that he's hurt our economy by manipulating the egg industry to drop their prices a little bit, which they did do, but they're back up. So once the business community imposes a price, they don't cut it back. You know, the majority, maybe some might, but the majority keep it. And overall, we end up paying more. So even if they reverse these tariffs, we're going to be spending more money as American consumers.
Well, do you think we'll get that $2,000 that he promised everybody because of all the money that we have collected on the tariffs? You know, this year we're supposed to, everybody in the country is supposed to get $2,000.
Right. The other day, I told my wife, I said, "Hey, I got a deposit of $2,100 in my account." And then, but it didn't say where it came from. I said, "Look at that Trump. He really came through." Then when I went to the bank, I found out that it was an error deposit and from somebody else that miswrote their number and put it in my account. And of course, I told the bank, "Let's correct this, get this money back to the person it was supposed to go to." So, yeah, you're absolutely right. We haven't seen one penny of that Trump money. And I doubt that we're going to see it. And it's getting close to the election. Now for us, the Illinois primary is March 17th, but their primaries all summer, all over all in the spring and in the summer, all over the country. I bet he's going to save his biggest, "Hey, I'm helping you" message probably sometime in September. He wants to impact that election. But things don't look good for the Republicans, I think, in this upcoming election. The midterms I think, are going to be harsh.
I'm sure that they're going to lose the House of Representatives. In some days, I really think they might lose the Senate. And it's all because of Trump's personality and the way he deals with people, the way he handles various situations, and things that he gets us involved in that, I don't understand I don't understand the man. I never will understand the man. And I just waste my time trying to figure him out.
Well, it's not a waste of time because he is our president, and every day he does something that impacts your wallet and my wallet. The economy is terrible. I don't care what anybody says. It's horrible. Costs are up. And I blame him because he said the first thing he was going to do, he had so many first things I was going to do, right? End the Ukraine war, end the war in Gaza, fix the economy, get more jobs. He keeps throwing these things out. It's a big blur. But I think he underestimates the American people. They're smart enough to see through his BS and they see what he's doing. And I think that they hold back. They may not react to him, to say, "Whoa, look at that." I think they wait until the election in November. And I think he's in for a huge embarrassment and an election judgment on him.
I agree with you.
Well, and then this week he did something on his own too. Of course, we all know that he created that Board of Peace.
Oh, yes.
It was supposed to be the Gaza Board of Peace. Remember, it was to help resolve that conflict. He said the war has ended between Israel and Gaza and the Palestinians. Of course, it hasn't. Every day, the Israelis are killing 10, 20 Palestinians. Just 3 days ago, a American was killed in the West Bank by these Israeli settlers that have been empowered now by this atmosphere of feeling they could do whatever they want. They don't care about peace in the Middle East. So the war is going on. So he says there's a peace and he created a Board of Peace, but it seems like it's a Ponzi scheme or financial scheme of some kind because he's collected $7 billion from 7 of the biggest countries, mostly from the Middle East. And he took $10 billion out of the American budget and put it in this Board of Peace, which he set up, and he declared himself the chairman for life. He runs that Board of Peace. It's not something that the taxpayers have anything to do with, but he took $10 billion in our tax money and put it on the Board of Peace.
Who are the countries that have contributed money to this? Do you have a list of them?
No, no, I don't have a list, but most of them, there are like seven of them from the Middle East, like Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. I mean, the Middle East countries do want to see an end to this conflict in Gaza because it breeds, in their view, extremism. You know, anger and hatred comes
Sure.
out of I kill your brother. You're going to be angry and you're going to be mad at me, and you're just not going to let it go. And if there are 1,000 people like you that have been victimized like that, all it takes is one of them to go the extra step and do something crazy. So they know that this type of policy that Israel is engaged in is going to fuel this extremism, and they want it to end, and they want to use this money to rebuild Gaza.
Has each one of those countries put up $10 million like we have?
Billion, 10 billion.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
10
no, that's
billion.
okay.
Yeah.
What does money mean anyway in this country? A million, billion, trillion. For Trump, it doesn't matter. It's his money. He can spend it any way he wants.
Who's gonna rebuild Ukraine?
Oh, yeah, that's right. We're going to talk about that. Unfortunately, Ukraine is in the background. I mean, we could talk about it right now if you want,
Sure.
because that was one of our topics that we're going to talk about. It's like Ukraine, nobody cares about it anymore. And to me, Ukraine is much more important because it involves a war started by Russia, the communists, and they're our biggest threat to the United States. It's not the Middle East. They're not our biggest threat. Iran
No,
is
that's
not
for
our
sure.
biggest threat. Russia is our biggest threat. And Russia is a communist nation like China, right? Communist country.
Well, yeah, I have to slightly disagree with you. I think our biggest threat is China, and then comes Russia. But Russia's, considerably behind China as far as I'm concerned. But they are certainly a much, much bigger threat than
Right.
anybody in the Middle East is to us. No question about that.
Definitely more than Iran. I mean, we sent almost our entire naval fleet to the waters around Iran, like we're going to bomb them pretty soon. Everybody's expecting another war that he will claim. I It's another conflict that I brought peace to. He says
Right?
he's
Yeah.
brought peace to 8 conflicts and deserves the Nobel
Yes.
Peace Prize. He's going to create. You watch, Bill. But mark my words. He's going to create the Donald Trump prize for peace and achievement. He's going to do his own, similar to the Nobel Peace Prize. He's just going to create his own, and he will be the first recipient
Oh, no
of that.
question about it.
Yeah, that's really just tragic. But
And
let's talk.
the award people will get will be a bust of Donald Trump. That'll be the award.
Right, and it'll be Donald Trump dollars. They're going to probably put. I listen. This guy, that this fight that he has with Canada over a bridge. If Canada were to say, "Hey, look, Donald, we'll put your name on the bridge," he'd completely reverse himself, and then
No
we'd be
question about
okay.
it.
There'd be no doubt about it because he's wanted to put his name on bridges, on buildings. He's probably going to rename Chicago Trump City. You watch. I mean, this guy, he can do whatever he wants, and nobody stops him.
Well, the Supreme
Nobody
Court just
challenges.
stopped him.
Well, we'll see how far that goes, though,
Well,
right? I
we
mean,
hope it
the
goes a long
tariffs
way.
were but the tariffs are so obvious an expansion of his rights, a violation of him going further in a very dramatic way. But all these other things he does, he kind of twists the language. He gets his attorney general, who likes to shoot dogs, to agree with him and, just give him the stamp of approval. We're living in really terrible times. Who knows? All this stuff that we're talking about is a controversy today, but tomorrow he'll do something else, and none of this stuff will matter.
Right.
That's a disturbing thing, don't you think?
Oh, everything about him is disturbing. All I have to say is I'm sure glad I never voted for him. Not the first time, the second time, or the third time. I never voted for him. I saw him for
Well,
what he was in the beginning, and he's lived up to my expectations, unfortunately.
let's talk a little bit about. You want to talk a little bit about Ukraine? I was reading a reported how brutal the Russians have been in the territories they've occupied. They arrest the people. They kill anybody, the men. They take the children away from the families. They bring them into Russia and then have them adopted by Russian families to become Russian. It's almost like this process of brainwashing and murder over there. And it's just terrible. And you wonder, why hasn't anything been done? War crimes. Why haven't there been charges?
Well, because I still think that unfortunately, Trump has a soft spot for Putin. Why he has it, I don't know. Because I think the Russians have been absolutely brutal. They've been evil in this war. Even now, what do they attack? It's the middle of winter. It's very cold there. They're attacking all the power stations. So the
Right,
civilians suffer each and every day without any heat, without any electricity.
right,
It is disgusting, and we just keep giving the Ukrainians enough to hang on, not to inflict enough damage on the Russians to get the Russians really prepared to sit down for peace. It's disgusting to me. And Biden was the same way. Biden only did
yes.
enough to keep the Ukrainians in the war.
Yes, well, listen, I think most people recognize, a lot of Democrats won't admit this. The only reason Trump is back in office is because the Democrats are so weak and ineffective, and they were a failure in conveying policies that the American voters would embrace. So Trump is here not because of the people who voted for Trump, but because I blame the Democratic leadership and Biden and even Kamala Harris. She was a good person, but she was just so inept. But then we have to keep respinning the old wheel, right? We
Right.
keep over and over again. It goes back to the same problems that we face, and it's just tragic, in a way. That's what makes it. It's like a nightmare that won't go away, and there won't be any solution until November during the midterm elections.
And see, I can't say there'll be a solution there. Hopefully, it'll stop Trump from doing many of these wild things that he does. But the Democratic policies, I really don't have any great support for them whatsoever. I don't think they're
Right,
going to really do much for America. I mean, what Biden did with that open border was criminal as far as I am concerned. Uh,
right,
and I don't want to see any more policies like that. But so many of the Democrats are going around saying, get rid of ICE. We no longer should have ICE. Well, we got all these illegal people here. We want to keep them here? I don't think
right.
so. But the Democrats would make you think that they should be here, that they have a right to be here. So I don't see any good policies coming out of the Democrats when they win the House and perhaps the Senate, but it will stop Trump from doing many of his ridiculous, oh, I don't know what to call it anymore, Ray, really. It's so,
Policies, right.
yeah, it's so
But
disgusting.
you're making a good argument that just because it stops Trump, it doesn't stop bad policy,
Right,
because
absolutely.
we haven't seen good policy from the Democratic Party and the Democratic leadership. That's been disappointing. Bill, let's take a quick break here at the end of this segment, and when we come back, let's talk about Jan Schakowsky withdrawing her endorsement. We could talk about Governor Pritzker and the Democrats, Prince Andrew, and the Somali fraud. If we have time, we can get into that topic about the ICE crackdown in Minnesota, because there was a whole aspect that nobody even looked at that started under Biden, not even Trump. We'll
I
be
think you
right
ought,
back.
I think you ought to
Mhm.
start out with that one, Ray, because I think that one is very important. And I
All
think
right.
that's an issue that really has not been covered even by the more conservative leaning, people, media people in this country.
All right. We'll do that right after these messages. We'll be right back, everybody. Hang on. Welcome back to Two Guys on Politics. This is Ray Hanania with former Congressman Bill Lipinski. Bill, the big topic is Somali fraud in Minnesota. I bet it's something you never even heard about, right?
Well, no, I've heard about it, but that's only because I read an awful lot of things. But I am surprised that even the conservative media in this country has not really zeroed in on it very much at all. So I'm happy to hear that you've really made a study of it. And there's a lot of facts that you can present to us that people will not hear any place other than on Two Guys on Politics.
Yeah. So what I did was, it turns out that there was a big problem with fraud in Minnesota involving overpayments for things like child care. You know, these are federal programs and even some state programs where a person can apply for funding, you know, to get support for their project, like child care. There's a lot of money, state and federal money, that goes to help child care. And then also providing food for seniors and the poor, you know, so that they're taken care of. And you think that, okay, um, it's, you know, a program that's supposed to be beneficial, right? Well, it turns out that Trump, at the end of last year, the middle of last year, I think it was in July, announced that they were going to investigate what he termed was Somali fraud in Minnesota. And the reason, and nobody explained why he picked Somali fraud. You know, it was like, oh, because he hates Ilhan Omar, the congresswoman who represents the fifth district in Minnesota. She's Somali. She's a Somali immigrant who became a citizen and ran for Congress and won out there. They got like, I think, a third, maybe even a half of all the Somalis in this country live in Minnesota, and a huge portion live in her district. So it's kind of like a Louis Gutierrez with the Hispanic community. He's there forever, as long as she's going to be there for as long as she wants to be there. But what happened was that everybody said, oh, so Trump sent the ICE in there because the facts showed that a lot of the fraud was by Somali business people, and that the Somali business people were ripping off not just the state government, but the federal government, and nobody was really taking it seriously. So he sent ICE in there to crack down on these people. And of course, that created a response from the activists who looked at this ICE assignment to Minnesota as part of Trump's crackdown on immigration, which it really wasn't. It was a crackdown on illegals who were involved in crime. And nobody looked at the facts. So what I did was I spent a little time researching this, and I found out that it was really Joe Biden who initiated the first investigation into Somali fraud when he was president. During his last year as president, before Trump came in, Trump continued, the Justice Department under Trump continued the investigations, but it was started under Biden. And it turned out that they have since convicted something like 90 to 120 people, and 80% of the people that have been convicted, maybe 90%, are of Somali background. That they involve cases where they've taken money from seniors, where they've taken money from childcare, where they've taken money from food programs, and they estimate that the amount of money was $2 billion that has been fraudulently taken from the federal government. Some of it was COVID, you know, had to do with COVID relief money, that which I think if somebody should go back and look at all that COVID money, there's so much fraud that was involved with that nobody really cracked down on. And a lot of it you have to blame on Biden. He didn't do anything. They just gave the money out and they just took your word for it. I feel bad that I didn't apply for COVID relief funding because everybody else apparently was. So that's the story going on. But everybody thinks today that it's because he hates Ilhan Omar, who he has called garbage. And Tim Walz was the governor of Minnesota. He was the vice presidential candidate with Kamala Harris, right? When she ran against.
Right. Did he do anything about this fraud in his
No,
state?
No, now they say that the state did, but it was very minimal because honestly, part of the problem was Trump politicized it. And once it becomes political, you shift away from the illegal aspects of it to the political argument. And that's really what Waltz did. He's been responding to the politics of this, and not enough has been done to investigate it. Right now, the only people clamoring for an investigation are the Republicans, and the Democrats are saying, no, this is just a crackdown on immigration rather than a act of, corruption and, grifting by one community that's so smart. They figured out how they were going to make billions, out of these state and federal programs. And it's really just shocking. So I've written two stories about it. I'll make sure to send them to you.
Yeah, please
And
do.
then I post them on my website at hanania.com.
I would like to, yeah, I would like to see what the governor did about this before, he was the vice presidential candidate, because I don't think he did much of anything. And,
No,
and that just goes to show you how inept the Democrats are to pick a guy like that who had such a terrific scandal brewing in his own state, and he did nothing about it whatsoever.
well, now Biden did initiate investigations and charges were filed.
Well, I'm not talking
But,
about Biden now. I'm talking about the
right,
governor.
but maybe that might be, and I'm not trying to excuse Waltz,
Uh,
and say that he didn't, but if the federal government stepped in, I don't recall Walt stepping up and making any big statements about it. But they did prosecute some people. But Trump took it on, and that's when it became a Democratic issue for Waltz and Omar and other Democrats. That's when they started attacking him, saying that he was singling out people because of their race and ethnicity, that they're Middle Eastern. Oh, here he goes again, picking on Arabs, picking on Middle Eastern people, when in fact, there's a serious fraud pattern run by Somali immigrants that have come into the country. Many of them are illegal. Now, there's still a small percentage of the Somali population in Minnesota and in the country. The majority are good people. They abide by the laws. They do what they're supposed, very respectful of what they're supposed to do. But it only takes like 5% of a population to cause great damage, and that's $2 billion is the amount of money that's been stolen. So it is a big problem. I
Well,
don't know.
listen, before we leave Minnesota, though, I think that next week perhaps we could do a segment on the mayor of Minneapolis going to see the mayor of New York to tell him how to handle ICE when ICE comes into New
Right.
York. Did you see that article?
Yes, yes, I did see that. Mandami in New York. I watch and look at Mandami. I think he's a good mayor of New York City. He seems, in my eyes, he seems to be pretty balanced toward the Jewish community and the Arab community and the Muslim community, because that's all what
What
people
about
criticize
what
them
about the
for.
Christian community?
Oh, nobody cares about the Christian
Oh,
community. Do
okay.
you hear anybody fighting for our rights? No,
Yeah.
nobody fights for our rights, Bill. Let's be honest. We're out there on our own,
Well,
lone wolves, trying to, survive in a
and how
country that
and
doesn't
it was
care
the
about us.
Christians that built this country, the white Christian Europeans that built this country.
It was actually even more restrictive than white Europeans. It was white Europeans who owned land.
Correct.
The white Europeans who didn't own land had no right
No, that's correct.
in this country. So yeah, it's whoever has the pen. This just goes to show you, whoever has the pen has the power in this country. Whoever writes the
Whoever
history.
writes history, right?
That's true.
Absolutely.
That does
Yeah.
that.
Well, we got to talk about your buddy in New York one of these days.
All right, we'll come back to him. So another topic that you and I were going to talk about is Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. I think she first got in there in 1998. She It was a Jewish district. The ninth district was considered had a large Jewish population,
Yes, it did.
including Evanston, Skokie, back in the 90s. And I think, who was the congressman before her? And
Oh, I
his
served
name
with him.
is, yeah,
Sidney Yates.
Sidney Yates, that's right. Sidney Yates was there for another 2 decades, I guess. And he was a pretty decent guy.
Yes, he
And
was.
he represented that district very well. And Jan Schakowsky, in my opinion, also, she's much more progressive, but I don't think she started out that way.
No, she
Um,
didn't.
I think the politics kind of pushed her to the left more, but I think she's been a great congresswoman, in my opinion.
Well, that's your
And I
opinion.
met her. I met her a couple times, and her husband, Bob
Bob Kramer.
Kramer. Yeah, he's a great guy. I love him. I think he's a great, political analyst and activist. So, but this week, Jan Schakowsky was in the news because I think last month she endorsed in another district, in the second district, which is where Robin Kelly is the congresswoman, and she's running for the U.S. Senate against Juliana Stratton and Raja Krishnamurthy,
Oh,
the
yes.
man, super bucks, we call him. He has more money than anybody. Robin Kelly is leaving her second district. So Donna Miller, who I believe is a county commissioner,
Yes, she is a
uh,
county commissioner.
yeah, she's running for Congress in the second district. And last week, she got a huge amount of money from AIPAC, which is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, the pro-Israel lobby. Now, there are two lobbies in this country. There's AIPAC, which in my view is the extreme pro-Israel lobby, and there's J Street, which is the Jewish lobby that I support. I'm a member of, even though I'm not Jewish, and they're very liberal. They're very centrist, and they support peace between Israelis and Palestinians. AIPAC supports Israel's government, Benjamin Netanyahu, and he does not support two states. He does not support the Palestinians, and he's just done tremendously bad things in Gaza. And it just keep getting worse. As you read, you learn more and more things about it. So Donna Miller, when she accepted that money from AIPAC, which is so aligned with Netanyahu, Jan Schakowsky was so offended she withdrew her endorsement of Donna Miller, and it made headlines because you rarely see somebody endorse somebody and then withdraw their endorsement. Have you seen
Yes,
that before? Has it happened before? I'm sure it has.
I'm sure it has. I can't think of any other case. But it's also surprising to me that once upon a time, Jan took a lot of
Yes,
campaign money from the same organization. Now, I
from
assume
AIPAC.
what has happened is that over the course of the years, Jan has become more and more disenchanted with the Netanyahu government in
Yes.
Israel. And since that PAC has been very supportive of him, that's why she felt she had to withdraw her support from that candidate once she got that $2 million. But I think that $2 million will do her a hell of a lot more good than Jan would have done for her, truthfully.
Well, listen, back in the 90s, AIPAC was Israel's government wasn't that bad. I mean, in the 90s and 2000, we saw the peace accord between Rabin and Arafat in 95, 93. And then in 95, unfortunately, Rabin was assassinated by a follower of Benjamin Netanyahu, one of his followers. And Rabin's widow said that her husband was killed by this guy who was a political extremist who was a follower of Benjamin Netanyahu and Ariel Sharon. So she did receive, I think, Jan Schakowsky did receive something like $700,000 from AIPAC in the beginning over those few elections, but not in recent years. And even though she is a Jewish congresswoman, she is
Well, in recent
Jewish.
years, I don't think she had any opponent, either in the primary or the general election. I think
You're
she
you're
ran unopposed.
you're very accurate. She's very strong, but AIPAC would definitely not have supported her because of her position against what Netanyahu is doing in the West Bank and in Gaza. She's a big supporter of peace. I like her. I think she's great. But it's disappointing for somebody like Donna Miller, who wants to run for Congress in the second congressional district that Robin Kelly now represents. Donna Miller is African American. The African American community is so very pro-Arab. They support the Palestinians. They don't like the Netanyahu government. It's not about criticizing Israel. It's about criticizing the government of Israel, and what he's doing there is just terrible. So for her to take the money, it was like, oh, why not? Let's take 900,000 and put it into our campaign, and maybe we can use that to win, and then we'll deal with the ramifications later. I was a big supporter of Donna Miller until I found out that she'd taken so much money from AIPAC. I can't support her because I don't support anybody today that takes money from AIPAC.
You and Jan Schakowsky.
Well, a lot of people see. This is interesting. I was at a political meeting last night where Kitty Kurth, I don't know if you remember the consultant and activist. She's done so many things in Chicago politics since the 70s. There was a group of people that got together at the Billy Goat Tavern and Lower Michigan Avenue, and one of the topics that came up was this idea that what AIPAC was doing, but there are so many races where AIPAC has become the villain, and they've always been the villain. I mean, in politics, local politics, you could attack AIPAC, but it never had any impact in the past the way it does in this election. Once you've been labeled as an AIPAC recipient, your numbers drop. And candidates there are more and more Democrats and even some Republicans who have said, I'm not taking money from AIPAC. That's boosted them in the polls. So almost double, maybe even triple the number of Congress candidates in the election have rejected money. Bill, that congressman I was talking about was Richard Boykin. I like him a lot. He didn't take any money from AIPAC. He's not going to take any money from AIPAC. And he was a former aide to Danny Davis's district in the 7th District. And he was a former Cook County commissioner. A nice guy.
I've known him for 20, 25 years. Very, very nice guy.
Yeah, very good guy. So it is interesting. And there is one candidate in that district. Her name is Irvin, I think, that is taken, Melissa Conyers Irvin. She's taken listen, this is unbelievable to me. AIPAC wrote a check for $2 million that they've given to her. They want to win that district and take it away from Danny Davis, who, Danny Davis is, when he was in Congress, and you and I knew him as alderman and congressman, just a great guy. We didn't agree with, you didn't have to agree with all his policies, but he was very critical of Israel's government. And they're out to take over that district, and they can pour $2 million into a district so that Melissa Conyers Irvin could win. It just seems so wrong. That why are we voting? Why don't we just see who gets the most money and just end it that way? Just count it all up.
We just get who gets the most money from AIPAC, and they're the winner.
And that's it. We might as well just do that. I mean, because in a lot of races, that's exactly what it comes down to.
It's just incredible the amount of money that they have.
Did you ever get a lot of money from AIPAC? I don't think AIPAC had an influence in the 3rd District, did they?
No. I'm sure that they usually gave everybody some money. I'm sure they probably gave me 5,000 or so for every election, but I never solicited. I was very fortunate. I just sent out letters to people. If they donated, fine. If they didn't donate, I didn't really need them, because fortunately at that time, I had some very strong political organizations supporting me. And no matter how much money you were going to spend against me, it wasn't going to do any good because of the organization strength I had. But that was a day in politics.
Well, if you get 5,000, that doesn't seem like a big deal.
No.
When you get 800,000, clearly somebody is trying to influence the race, right? That's no question about it. 5,000 is, Bill, we like you. We want to show our support, and you can do whatever you want. They like you. It's not like, hey, you owe us. 800,000, it's you owe us. That's the difference. And that really,
you're right.
They should do something about that.
That's another reason we have to put a limit of the amount of money that can be spent in a campaign. We should have campaign limits. What do you think of the Democratic primary race for governor? Who do you think is winning that at the present time? I would be very interested to get your analysis of that situation.
I don't know. I'm going to, for governor, you mean like
the U.S. Senate.
Oh, for the U.S. Senate. Now,
yeah.
I really liked Robin Kelly. And I thought, okay, she probably was the best because she talked about issues. Raja Krishnamurthy and Juliana Stratton have mainly said, we're against Trump and we're going to fight Trump and we're going to do everything we can. This is the fight of our lives. And I'm thinking, okay, what are you going to do to fight him, Raja? Just give me one good program that you're going to do it. How are you going to do it? And he doesn't provide that information. Robin, I think, has provided details on what her plans are for the economy and she hasn't made it about Trump. And that was one of our topics, actually, that we wanted to talk about, how Trump has become the face of the fight in American politics by Democrats. In other words, you don't have to, as a Democrat, you don't have to answer the problem.
You don't have to be for anything.
Yes, you don't have to say, here's my solution. All you have to do is say, I hate Trump and I'm going to fight against him. And everybody is rallying around you. But all the candidates are saying, I hate Trump. So how do we distinguish them? Robin, I think, is focused more on solutions. I like her. And,
well, she just got up on television in the last couple of days with commercials.
Yes, she did. And she didn't do very well in the debate, the one debate that I saw. She just kind of, she just was irrelevant almost in that debate. Stratton really came out. She's backed by Pritzker, so it's.
Well, she's the lieutenant governor.
Yeah, she is. All right. And Bill, I saw your column this week in the Des Plaines Valley News, and your columns, I post them on my website at courageousthought.com or hanania.com. People couldn't spell Hanania, so I had to change the name to courageousthought.com to get people to go there. So it is getting more readership now because it's easier to spell courageous than it is Hanania. So your columns are there for our listeners. If they want to check it out, they can get your columns there.
I'll be sending a new one today.
And we will be posting that too. So any final thoughts on any other things we didn't really talk about?
I think that next week, at least sometimes before the Senate race, we should have an in-depth discussion of the three major candidates and who we think will win and why that candidate will win.
Yeah, I like Raja. He's a nice guy. I've met him. He's a decent person. But I really hate the idea that somebody has so much more money than the other candidates, and that money gives you an edge. I think voters out there, I wonder how many voters look at that and say, you know what, I don't like that because he's buying the election. That's what Pritzker basically did. Well, and I think that's wrong.
Raja hasn't gotten above 36% in any poll that I have seen, no matter how much money he spends. But let's talk about it in depth next week.
All right, we'll do that. All right, Bill, thank you. I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics.
We'll talk to you next week, everybody. Bye-bye.